This is The Countdown, discussing tomorrow's news today as our top guests tackle the issues that matter with a sharp take on every story.
And now, here is your host, Andrew Weeks.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the Countdown. My name is Andrew Weeks. This is the 2nd of November, 2025. It's Sunday again in Guyana. And as you know, we're here preparing for the 13th Parliament to be reopened. We have so much to discuss this morning. I have with me my guest, Dr. David Hinds, who's going to be also an MP, will take in the oath of office tomorrow. And so we have so much going on. And I don't want to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. Dr. Hinds, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Andrew, and thanks for having me.
Oh, it's glad to have you, Doc. I haven't had you in a while on the Countdown, and I know that circumstances have made that happen, but now you're here. And I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to come on the air and, have a little discussion on some matters that are taking place in our country that are of national importance. I want to thank you for taking the time. Let's get right into it, Doc. There's some politics right now. I want to begin by asking you your views on the, on the reopening of Parliament, and the arrest of, and bail of the opposition leader Azudin Mohammed it seems to me that some form of machination is taking place between the government and the incoming leader of the opposition from taking the oath of the office. But this arrest, according to Rick Fordberg, has embarrassed the government. And he said it on his Facebook page just yesterday, and he said that a source in the PPP government told the CGID that the proceedings went so bad that it made the government look incompetent and like the villain. The source said that the court granted bail to the Mohammeds was a surprise, and that the entire situation portrayed the Mohammeds as victims. What is your thought on this matter, Dr. Hinds?
Well, thank you again for having me. I do not have any deep thought on the Mohammed issue. It's an issue that I have not commented a lot on because it is an issue that I've not fully wrapped my mind around. Clearly, Mr. Mohammed has been indicted by the United States of America. Clearly, according to him, whatever he may have been involved in, it was done with the collusion of the government of Guyana. And let me tell you, I am more interested in that. I am interested in what the government of Guyana did, whether the government of Guyana was involved with Mr. Mohammed and to what extent they were involved. I'm a political person. And I am interested in how governments operate. Now, individuals are important. Clearly, Mohammed, whatever he has been involved in, I think that's his business. And you can put it down to personal flaw. You can put it down to a whole number of things. So I'm less interested in the indictment of the Mohammeds, because Mohammed is not part of government yet. When he becomes opposition leader, if he becomes opposition leader, he then becomes part of government. But the accusations against him were of actions done before he was part of government. So it was done in his personal capacity. And, as an individual, all I can say, one must be presumed innocent until found guilty. So I am less interested in the Mohammeds. If the Mohammeds are found guilty, I am perhaps even prepared to say, I'm in sympathy with you. But it is the government that I am interested in. And so insofar as Mr. Mohammed says that he's going to sing, I am waiting on him to sing. And until he sings, this is not a big story for me. The big story is when he sings.
When he sings.
And if he sings and the government is involved, then this story becomes a big story for me.
Indeed. When he sings, then the story becomes more interesting. Dr. Hinds, let's talk about the WPA role in this new 13th Parliament will be. You, as an MP elect, you are going to, Parliament anyways. You are under the APNU view, APNU, and you're the WPA co-leader. I know, the Dr. Hinds that I know, when things not seems right, Dr. Hinds will tell you to your face, it doesn't seem right. You have this, you have an open view, you have a mind as a political scientist to have your own independent view. I want to get your take in how you foresee your role as a member of the APNU. You also going to be shadowing the Ministry of is what is it? I think it's social protection. It is human services and social protection, so social security rather.
Social security.
Yeah, social security. How would you see your role as shadowing that department and also being a sharpshooter, so to speak, as a WPA member and leader in this whole thing in Parliament?
Yes, and thanks, Andrew, for introducing me in that when introducing the subject in that way. I think you are, in your introduction there, you are in line with what people seem to be feeling on the ground. Only last night I was at a social functions, one of my friend's 60th birthday in Nabaklis. And everybody, man, woman, who said something to me, said, I can't wait for Monday to come. I know that you are going to do what you are sent there to do. And I continue to be amazed that Guyanese people and the level of political intelligence, first of all, that they think that the parliament matters. And Parliament doesn't have a great record. It does not have a great standing among people. People think parliamentarians are a waste of time. Yet, this parliament, they seem to have an interest in it. And based on what they're saying to me, they're expecting a particular attitude from me in parliament. And some of them articulate what that attitude should be, and some have not articulated it. And so the introduction there, I think, is a recognition that somebody like myself comes from a particular political tradition, which you describe as independent, right? And I think there is that expectation among the masses that somebody like me going into parliament, I am not expected to behave like your normal, regular career parliamentarian. People are expecting a certain kind of attitude from me. Now, the parliament has three major functions. The National Assembly, because we have to distinguish between the National Assembly and Parliament. The National Assembly is the assembly of all those who are elected at the last election. And then the Parliament is the National Assembly plus the President. Whenever the President goes to the National Assembly becomes Parliament. So there's a difference between the National Assembly and Parliament. But we use them interchangeably. We say members of Parliament rather than members of the National Assembly. Look, so the National Assembly / Parliament has three major functions. The first function is representation. It's a representative body. The people who go there are representing people. They're representing constituents, whether those constituents are geographical or they're representing constituents nationally. They're there to represent the interests of the people, their constituents. They're there to represent the affairs. They're there to take questions there that the people want answers to. It's a representative body. So that's the first function. The second function is a lawmaking body. The National Assembly is there to make laws, our laws. There are three branches of government: the National Assembly / Parliament, which is the legislative branch, they make law; the cabinet, which and the president, which is the executive branch, they carry out the law; and the judicial branch that interprets the law. So our function as members of parliament is partly a lawmaking body. We are there to make laws. If the laws are broken, we should fix them. If the laws are not clear, we should clarify them. If the laws are not consistent with the times, we should make them consistent with the times. And so if we are there to make law, we have to be conversant with the Constitution. We have to be conversant with the laws of Guyana. And the third function is the oversight function. As the executive, as the legislative branch, we are an oversight of the executive and the judicial branch. That is, we ask questions of the executive. We make sure the executive is doing the right thing. If they're not doing the right thing, then we exercise the right to say, stop, we need answers. If monies are voted, for example, the legislative branch is the purse of the government. Any monies that are spent by the executive branch must pass through the legislature. It must pass through the parliament. The parliament is the purse. And if the parliament disburses money, for example, to the executive to build a bridge, or the executive comes and say, we need money to build a bridge, then we are there to say, tell us, how is that money spent?
Yeah.
So we are an oversight body, oversight of the executive, oversight of the judicial branch. So it's a very important institution in the British tradition that we come from. They're based. Their system is based on legislative supremacy. That is the supremacy of the legislature. The legislature, for example, hires the prime minister in England and fires him. All right?
Yes, right.
In our case, because we have what is called a hybrid system, we do not hire the president. He's elected directly. So we can fire the president. But when he names this cabinet, then the cabinet becomes open to our scrutiny. So it's a very important branch. And I, as an institutionalist, as a scholar, I have taught government, I have taught parliament, I've taught the legislature. So I have an academic and one may say intellectual sense of the body. And I take that body very seriously. Before I was nominated, elected to go there, I've always taken the legislature very, very seriously. Now, I know that in Guyana, the legislature has been taken for a ride, largely because the executive branch, the cabinet, comes from the party, the ruling party, and we have cabinet members who sit in parliament. Now, what that does is that it weakens the oversight of the executive. Because if you have somebody sitting in both the cabinet and the parliament, that person is oversighting himself or herself. And so what you have there is not a strict separation of powers. We have a limited separation of powers, which makes the work of the parliamentarian, especially the opposition parliamentarian, very, very difficult. Often the government gets its way because there's no independence in the government parliamentarians. They vote along with the government and so on. So it waters down the work of the parliamentarian. But even in that situation, I think there are ways and means of representing issues, of speaking to issues, of asking questions, even when you know that they are not going to answer the questions adequately and there's no penalty for that, even when you know that they bring a bill to Parliament and they will use their majority to pass it, you get a chance not to just speak to your fellow parliamentarians, but to speak to the public. So for me, the Parliament in Guyana, for me, is an extension of the work outside of Parliament. Some people say the work outside of Parliament is an extension of the work in Parliament. For me, David Hinds, and the Working People's Alliance to which I belong, is the other way around. It is, Parliament for us is an extension of what happens in the villages, at the people's workplaces, or what happens among the masses. We take that to Parliament. So Parliament is an extension. And that is the role I intended to play. That is the praxis that I will use as I go into Parliament.
But you're going to come up with a lot of bottleneck and objections and stoppage, because in the 12th Parliament, you had a speaker who does not receive motion from the opposition, does not support motions from the opposition, stop motions, does not like certain words to be said in Parliament. You call them unparliamentary words, like corruption. Doesn't want that to be sung in Parliament. You said that there are ways and means of dealing with it when it comes to the work of a minister and the work of a cabinet person. It can be overworked, if you want to put it that way, for the minister, who have to deal with both cabinet role and ministerial role and parliamentarian role. Do you see some kind of constitutional reform or some kind of bill that will change that and make the minister or the MP or the parliamentarian, the government side, more accountable, like what they have in Congress, where they have subcommittees and committees that will call you in to question you on certain things that you've been doing as an elected body? Would you like to make that one of your top priorities to see done in the Parliament?
Yes, certainly constitutional reform is an area that I have an interest in. The WPA has an interest in constitutional reform. And we need a constitution overhaul to express the independence of Parliament. Parliament, as I explained and as you just reiterated, the way it operates now is not independent because you have the executive. For example, we have to wait on the president to call Parliament. You know, the president is the head of the executive branch. Why do we have to wait on the head of the executive branch to call the legislative branch into operation? That power to call Parliament should be removed from the president. He's the head of one branch of government. That is his sphere of power and should remain so. He should have no power to convene Parliament. The power to convene Parliament should come from Parliament itself. So one of the things that we would want to do is to remove that power of convening Parliament from the president and give that power to Parliament itself, whether we give it to the Speaker or we give it to the administrative arm of Parliament. But the president should not be convening Parliament. What we are saying is that the president is the head of two branches of government, and that is total political slackness. So one of the things we would want to do is to remove that and to have a stricter separation of powers, so that if you are a member of the cabinet, you should not be sitting in Parliament. In America, once you can be a member of Congress, and if the president says, well, I want you to be my education secretary, you then have to give up your seat in Parliament. All right, in Congress. And I would like to see that system in Guyana, so that when you are questioning the Minister of Finance, you're questioning him as a member of the executive and not as a member of the legislative branch. So we would like a strict separation of powers. And when we talk about constitutional reform, that's what we would want to talk about. Now, there are committees. There are committees in the parliament. They're standing committees, meaning that these committees are permanent committees. That's what a standing committee is. And then you have what are called select committees, which are committees that are temporary in nature. You know, you want a committee to investigate immigration. You can set up a select committee on immigration, and when that committee finishes its work, it's disbanded. So you have these standing committees, you have select committees, they're what they're called sectoral committees.
Yes.
So they do have these committees. The thing is that the committees reflect the majority in the parliament. So the government, for example, has 4 seats, the opposition has 3 seats. There were instances like in the Public Accounts Committee where the opposition got to chair the Public Accounts Committee, which is a very important committee.
Yes.
And so the opposition gets to chair that. But you saw what the government did. It uses majority to change the standing orders, to change the quorum. So it prevented the Public Accounts Committee from meeting. And Brother Jermaine Figueroa, who I think did a very good job as a young member of parliament on the Public Accounts Committee. And I would like to say thanks to him for the kind of work that he did as a young parliamentarian, young both in terms of age, but in terms of experience. And I think he did a good job. But they didn't allow him to function and allow the committee to function because they changed the standing orders so that you now couldn't have a quorum if the government is absent. And so they that committee became comatose. But that is a very, very, very important committee. And the government doesn't allow it to function because it controls the rules. So we should have the standing orders in the parliament to be independent of manipulation by the ruling party. In the United States of America, you know, they have these rules. So, you know, for example, they say in order to even get a bill on the floor, you need 2/3, you need 60% of the thing. So what that means is that the government cannot use its simple majority to get its way. In order to get something done, the opposition has to have a say. And I think such a system should be introduced in Guyana. So yes, I would be very much interested in constitutional reform and would be spending part of my time trying to push for constitutional reform in Guyana.
Thank you so much for that submission there, Dr. Hinds. If you just join us, you're looking at the countdown. We have our guest with us, Dr. David Hinds. He's an MP-elect under the APNU. He's also the political leader for the WPA, co-leader rather, for the WPA. And he's going to be sitting in Parliament. And as he just said, he's not going to be one of those politicians who just have a mind that sucks the juices from other minds. He has an independent mind. He will tell you what he thinks and done with it. Dr. Hinds, just recently, the APNU announced its shadow members, and some feel that it did not have the blessings of the opposition leader. I had some reservations about that matter, but it was cleared up last night by Dr. Campbell, who said that the APNU has a right to choose its shadow members, but not shadow ministers. That's the rule. That's the job of the opposition leader. And it came to me as well that when I look at the British Parliament, they have also members on the other side who from the Scottish branch and who does not normally agree with the opposition leader and what he does and but he also have their own shadows. So it was cleared up, and that it is not something that is, you know, it is not new that a political party doesn't have the right to choose its leader or its shadows. It has that right. as an independent body because they're not into a coalition. What are your thoughts? How would you put this to rest with your political knowledge and training?
Yeah, look, what we have on the opposition side are three parties or three entities, because the APNU is not a party. The APNU is really a coalition. And in this sense, in this case, the 12 members of the APNU are 11 PNC members and 1 WPA member. So the APNU is not a party, it's a coalition of parties. So you have three entities on the opposition side. One with 16 seats, the other one with 12, and the other one with 1. So what you have are two of the opposition parties of almost equal strength. You see, if you had, let's say, the Win Party with 27 seats, and APNU with 1, and Forward Guyana with 1, then the matter becomes easily on all the sectoral committees, on all the other committees. Win will get all the seats. The government will get 4, Win will get 3. In this case, in a 4-3 breakdown, the 3 on the opposition side, 2 will go to Win, 1 will go to the APNU. So what you have are opposition parties, 2 of them, of almost equal strength. So although the leader of the opposition has to come from the party with the most seats, that party has to share the offices and the committees with the other party, which is the other entity, which is APNU. And so therefore there is need for coordination and cooperation between those two parties, and to some extent the Forward Guyana movement. There has to be coordination. The Win cannot ignore, they can ignore Forward Guyana, but they can't ignore APNU. And so therefore when we talk about shadow, they will have to divide the shadow ministries between themselves and the APNU. You know, I would think if there are 20 ministries to shadow, you will have a breakdown of something like 11 to 9 or 12 to 8, you know? So you will have to have shadows. The APNU, although it is not the largest party in the opposition, it's large enough to shadow. Like I said, if you have 20 ministries to shadow, they will have to give about 8 of those to the APNU. And the APNU has to have 8 people out of its 12 who are going to shadow those ministries that are allocated to them. So let's say they allocate social protection to the APNU. David Hinds is already shadowing social protection for APNU. So he now becomes the shadow for the opposition. All right? You follow what I'm saying? So any eight of the APNU shadows, 7 of the APNU shadows, will have to shadow for the opposition. So the fact that the APNU named a shadow is to say, these are the ministries that our parliamentarians are going to shadow. Some of them will shadow it as both APNU and the opposition, and some of them will shadow it just as APNU. What shadow means is to pay attention, to scrutinize. That's all it is, all right? It's not anything big and constitutional, right?
That's right.
So for example, Sister Amanza would have to shadow all the ministries for FGM because she's the only member there, right? She will have to pay attention to all the ministries. Now, whether she is given a ministry to shadow by the leader of the opposition, that's another matter. Numerically speaking, no, she doesn't qualify because she does have 1 seat. But the opposition leader could say, look, Amanza did a very good job in the last parliament in shadowing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She's now there in the opposition. I will ask her, I will give one of the ministries to her to shadow. Now he will have to give one of those ministries from win allocation, because he having allocated numerically to the APNU to get Amanza in. APNU will have to say, look, we are going to share one of our ministries with Amanza. Or Win will have to say, we are going to share one of our ministries with Amanza. And I am not opposed. I am not opposed to Amanza being given a ministry to shadow. Yes, she has one seat, but she's there as a bona fide member of parliament. And if you're talking about inclusive governance, we have to find a way for her to shadow a ministry at the least. She may not. You may not give her a seat on a sectoral committee or something like that. I'm not opposed to that, but you may make an argument that you're not going to give her a seat on any of the sectoral committees, but certainly at the level of the shadow, I think WIN and APNU should come together and say, look, we are going to give Amanza one ministry to shadow. I think it will show political maturity if we were to go down that road. But that is down the road. I have one voice in the APNU, and sometimes your voice may be small numerically, but it could be big otherwise.
Yes.
And I think what I'm hearing from people as I meet them on the streets is that they think I have a loud voice, and so it will make a difference in parliament, although it's just one voice. I hope they're correct.
Well, we know you have a loud voice, especially when people try to make the ice and pass you. I expect that in parliament, because you can have a lot of hecklers. I have a strong believing that this government has put together a heckling backbenchers.
Yeah.
Just for you, Dr. Hinds. Expect that come in. And I know you will deal with them adequately and professionally. And then want to get on in the gutter, we can do that 2 Buxtonian style. Let them know that.
I promise, Andrew, that I have no taste for that kind of heckling in parliament. The parliament is a sacred body. I mean, people died, shed their blood, give their life for the right to make laws, to make their own laws. And you go there and you turn it into, I don't want to say a fish market, because I think a fish market is a very important place. But you turn it into a place where people are trading insults. I will try as much as possible not to engage in that kind of behavior. But if you cross the line, I can assure you that you're gonna hear from me.
I see one of the folks in the chat section is asking if you'll be sharing your seat with Mr. Amsterdam, another member of the WPA, in the next 2 or 3 years or so. What is going on there?
That matter was raised in our executive, and we have deferred it. We have a let me put it this way. We got one seat, right, as a result of what the APNU got, and we were allocated one seat. And the WPA has an agenda that it wants to use that seat to carry out. And it determined that I am the best person in the collective to carry out that agenda. So whether we share the seat halfway, whether we share it at all, would be determined by our agenda. As I said before, that matter was raised, it was deferred, but it's not off the table. We could well do that in the future. But for now, given our agenda, the party has determined that I am the best person to carry out that agenda in Parliament.
Are you going to be how should I put it? Are you going to be surprised or not surprised that the same speaker that sat in the 12th parliament going to return in the 13th parliament? Or you expect another?
No,
And what about the deputy speakership? Because I heard that there's some machinations there as well to choose a deputy speaker for parliament. What are your thoughts on that?
First, we are hearing that Nadir will come back. We may be surprised, we may not be surprised. But your second question needs some comment. And that is, what about the deputy speaker? The practice has always been that the deputy speaker will go to the party with the second most seats in the National Assembly. Now, that was changed unfortunately, it was changed in 2011 by the APNU, AFC, which had a majority and elected Raphael Trotman as the speaker and Debbie Back as the deputy speaker, both coming from the APNU, AFC. The PPP was locked out. The PPP should have, if they had followed the old practice, the PPP should have gotten the deputy speakership. When the PPP, we moved from 2011 to 2015, and we continued the same practice. Now, when the PPP came back to power in 2020, revenge. They do the same thing. They give the deputy speaker to de facto PPP members because, clearly, where is Schumann now? Asha Kitsun, where is she now? They were really PPP fronts. And so the PPP basically took both the speaker and the deputy speaker. Speaking from a WPA standpoint, we are saying that we are comfortable going back to the old practice of the deputy speaker going to the party with the second most seats in parliament. And in that case, it would be win. And I would have no problems in supporting that. And I'm not speaking here for the APNU. I'm speaking here for the WPA. I'm speaking for the WPA. That win as the second largest number of seats. And we would like to go back to the old practice, because we feel that sometimes you change these things and it come back to bite you. So go back to the old practice. And if you go back to the old practice, then the deputy speakership should go to win. But like I said, that is a WPA position, not an APNU position. I am not at liberty to say in public what the APNU position is. But the WPA doesn't believe that you should play hanky-panky with certain things.
Well said, Dr. Hinds. Just to be clear and to make it public, I know that you were a citizen of the United States of America. I know that you entered into parliament now. You're supposed to give up your citizenship. You're supposed to have a dual citizenship factor going on in parliament, like what happened with Waldron in 2020. And I want to believe that you have gotten that cleared up, and that you are going to be sitting in parliament as a duly representative of the citizens of Ghana, as a member and a citizen of the country of Ghana. Correct?
No, it's not correct. No, you're not correct.
Because the people can hammer you when they come to that. They can come after you they can come after you. So.
My brother, I was never a citizen of the United States of America. In all of my 65 years, I've held one citizenship, and that is Guyanese citizen. Never changed it. I lived in America mostly for 30-odd years. I never became an American citizen. I have always been a Guyanese citizen. I don't like too much work, man, unnecessary work. I knew that I was going to be involved in Guyanese politics. I left here. I went to study to satisfy my mother's yearning. She wanted her son to study at Howard University. And I went there and I studied. And when I was finished studies in 1997, I started to come back home often. I would come during the summer break for 3 or 4 months. You know that, Andrew, because you know as soon as I landed in the country, you would be the first person to call me, Dr. Hinds, come from the interview. So I would spend my 4 months of summer here, and then I come back at Christmas time and spend another month and a half. So for the last 28 years, I've been in Guyana 5 to 5.5 months each year and engaging in politics. So long before they passed the law that you can't have dual citizen in parliament, long before that, I figured that out on my own. I figure morally that if you're involved in the politics as deeply as you are in the politics in your country, you should not become a citizen of another country. And so I never became a citizen of the United States. So I didn't have that burden. As that matter was raised inside of the APNU at the last election, and an emissary was sent to me by the APNU leadership, which didn't want me on the ticket. They didn't want me as a candidate. And so they said, well, he got dual citizens. He's American citizen. And they sent an emissary to me. And I proved to the emissary that, but I took my passport and my green card to Amnali, who was then the czar for the APNU, and I said, Amna, look, I am not a scrave man. I am contented with one. And I put the green card and the thing in front of her. So I repeat that here today. I'm not a scrave man for citizenship. I've never been. I am proud to be a Guyanese citizen. I am telling you, I am proud to be a Guyanese citizen. And if I were to change my citizenship for anything, it would be to become a Caribbean citizen, maybe of Trinidad or Barbados, if they decide to put me on a boat and and send me away. I would opt for a Caribbean citizen of a Caribbean country. But I love being Guyanese, and I would not trade my citizenship. I am thankful to America for what it did for me, my family, my sisters, my brothers, and so forth. There are opportunities I got in America that I could not have gotten in Guyana. And I'm thankful to America for that. I worked in America when I couldn't find work in my own country. When I applied to work after I finished my PhD, and I applied for work in Guyana, I was stopped. I applied to work at CARICOM, the PPP government, which, the government. The way CARICOM works, if you apply for a senior position, they would ask your home country. And your home country, it's not asking your home country to say yes or no. But in my case, when they asked my home country under Janet Jagan government, she said no. And so I couldn't find work in Guyana. I couldn't find work at CARICOM because I wanted to be in Guyana. And in any case, I found out that if I were working for CARICOM, I couldn't engage in Guyanese politics. So after time, that becomes null and void. So because I couldn't find work in Guyana, I had to make a living. And so I ended up working in the United States of America. But no. There's no story about citizenship on me.
No dual citizenship. You're proud Guyanese. You are a born and bred.
Bred and proud Guyanese.
Born, bred, and proud.
And let me make this very clear, that this is not to indict people who are citizens of America. If I were not involved in politics, perhaps I would have, become an American citizen. Because our people are there in America. They are contributing to the economy. They are contributing in many ways to America. And if the opportunity arises for them to become citizens, they have a right to become citizens. Because with citizenship, you have privileges that somebody without citizenship doesn't have. You see? So I am not denouncing people from Guyana becoming citizens of other countries. My family, my brothers and sisters, they're all citizens. So I made that personal, that personal decision. So for me, it's a personal decision. And it had to do with the fact that I saw myself as contributing more to Guyanese politics than American politics.
Well said. Dr. Hinds there for you. If you just join us, we are looking at the countdown and we're having our guest, Dr. David Hinds. He's going to be a member of parliament in a few hours tomorrow. And I hope all of us tune in for that. And he's going to be taking the oath of office as APNU MP. Dr. Hinds, I want to jump to something else that maybe have been tickling your training in this area of the mobile gas station bombing. We've seen the president came out and today in the Chronicles and he denounced the gas station bombing and he vowed that the government will pursue justice relentlessly, declared that the nation will not be yielded to threats against its sovereignty. This issue, Dr. Hinds, is now taking on a lot of twists and turns. We are convinced that the person apprehended, there are some persons who said that the person who apprehended by the police for the bombing is not who they say they are. Those are going on out there. The police press conference held after the bombing. Many citizens do not even trust the information that were given by the police and the Minister of Home Affairs. But just before you do answer, share your thoughts on that, there's a quote that came from Keith Bernard in the Sabbath News newsletter section, letter to the editor section on November 31. He said, it is, and I quote him, he said this, it is high time the government trade the bird-watching guide for a counter-terrorism manual. Proactive, intelligence-driven, and decisive action is required, not bureaucratic dwindling. Terrorism is not a nuisance to be tolerated with mild inconvenience. It is a threat demanding speed, precision, and constant vigilance. In short, he said, let us leave the molasses behind and embrace the urgency before the next crisis arrives, and whether it is wings, strings, or something far more sinister on this matter. What are your thoughts on that and your whole situation with this?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very apt comment there from Mr. Bernard, who writes very lucidly in the newspapers, and I look forward to always read his letters. Let me start by saying, you mentioned the president said he will do everything. You know what he also said? He can't wait to sign the death penalty for that man. No, whatever you think. Why are you as president saying you can't wait to kill a man? No, yes, the bomber, his action killed a little girl and could have killed more people. But as president, come on, man, you can't wait to sign. I mean, there are other ways of engaging this matter and being very stern on the matter without saying that you can't wait to sign the thing to kill the man. But anyhow, that is the nature of these people. You may start and say you can't wait to sign the death penalty for that man, and then the next day you can't wait to sign the death penalty for David Hinds. And the next day you can't wait to sign the death penalty for Andrew Weeks, And we don't need that kind of inhumane rhetoric coming from our leader. Leave that for them little boy and girl in the street corner, that should not be coming from our president. So I just wanted to register that. Listen, this whole thing is, there are more questions than answers. If you are telling me that a man belongs to a gang, a top gang in Venezuela, and this man allegedly could have contact with the Venezuelan government, how are you going to come into a country with cameras all over the place, walking to a gas station, which gonna have camera? Because if you are this big gang member and you're an emissary of an agent of the Venezuelan government, you must wreck the place. No, I think You walk in and put on a bag, everybody see you. All the cameras are there. That is not a professional operation. And if a Venezuelan gang or the Venezuelan government sending a man to do that, they got to send a professional. That is not a professional operation. And so therefore, the question, who sent this man? Who sent this man? It can't be as simple as to say the Venezuelan government sent it or a gang sent it. There are more questions than answers. What is the motive? Why are you coming to bomb a gas station as opposed to bombing some other symbol of power in Guyana? That question has not been answered. As Dr. Jeffrey said on my program this week, it could be the government send the man. Our government. You know, we know of those kinds of operations. All right? So we don't know. We don't know. And the government is not helping us to know. No, Guyana is one of the most, I will put my neck out and say, as far as the English-speaking Caribbean is concerned, Guyana is the most militarized state, the state with the most security setup. We got more security cameras here than the whole of the rest of the Caribbean. All right? and so if you have this security apparatus set up, why couldn't you intercept a man coming here with a boat, landing at Virgin Ocean? Obviously, take minibus or car or whatever he take. Come over Barra-Jagdeo Bridge, and get Barra-Jagdeo there to see the man and to intercept him. Barra-Jagdeo couldn't intercept him. Andrew, they would have intercepted you.
That's
they
right.
would have intercepted me.
Yep.
Why this man was not intercepted? I am making the argument here that this country has a security apparatus. But as Bernard is hinting in his thing, the security apparatus is geared towards baby Skello. It is geared towards the political opposition. It is geared toward to find out the girl, the nurse who leak information and will go on with Adriana Young autopsy. It is geared to suppressing its own citizens and not to deal with the clear and present danger of one, being a petrol state. When you're a petrol state, you look around the world. With petrol state come all kinds of global and local criminality. You are in a dangerous neighborhood where you're seeing the collision of the United States, China, Russia, Venezuela. Venezuela is then claimed to your territory. It says it will not accept what the ICJ or any world court say. So you are in a dangerous neighborhood. And your apparatus, your security apparatus, has to be first and foremost defensive, to defend your citizens. You may not be able to have a security apparatus that is offensive, mean that you are going into Venezuela to do things and so on. But your security apparatus has to be able to defend your citizens and to defend your sovereignty, however fickle that sovereignty is. All right? And so if you have a defensive security setup, you should be able to intercept a clumsy operation like that.
Yep.
A clumsy operation like that. And so this government has to be accused of kicking the Winston Henry Calypsonian explainer. You know, he sang a calypso thing in 1979, not Keith Beresford. I see Keith is on here. I think it's 1979. He sang Kixin in Parliament. This Kixin in those days were they're stripping as young people say, you know, right? This government got to be Kixin. This government has the capacity, it has the money to set up a robust defense security apparatus to secure our people. But you can't want it in bake and cake. You want Venezuelans to come here so you can utilize their vote as part of your rigging machinery. And so you let in all Tom, Dick, and Harry, including, according to former Minister Robeson-Ben, you letting in sleepers, you letting in spies, and you're not making a differentiate between the sheep and the goat. I'm asking this question now. How many Venezuelan spies voted for the PPP at the last election?
That's a question.
Right. How many spies like this man with the bomb voted for them? You see? So you want the Venezuelans to come here, not because you have an open immigration policy, because you don't. When the Haitians come, you kick them out. You don't have an open immigration policy. You kick out the Haitians, but you're open to Venezuela. And Venezuela is our sworn enemy as far as our territory is concerned. Haiti is not our enemy, yet you're kicking the Haitians out. And you're bringing in, some are saying 70,000, some are saying 100,000 Venezuelans in the country. We don't know. And so, therefore, it is your opportunistic immigration policy is part of the problem. It is your selective surveillance that is part of the problem. And so now you are in this thing, and I think this, when you see the PPP government behave the way it is behaving on this matter, bet your bottom dollar is either some of their friends and favorites involved or some of their close comrades involved in this thing. Somebody close to them or some people close to them are involved in this thing. What we now know from all the talk about gold smuggling and narco smuggling, that there is a route between Venezuela and Guyana. And that smuggling route between Venezuela and Guyana is dominated by PPP friends. That we know. And so this thing here get plenty legs. And my view is that if the PPP were to come straight with the Guyanese people, they will be indicting themselves.
And you jump into my formulation questions, because just recently, Rear Admiral Dr. Gary Best stated that last week that capping Venezuelan migrants or refugees is a national security matter.
Yes,
and that the unity is needed for national defense. These I think even Amanda Walton Desir, who came to the countdown last week, she said she called on the government to reactivate the Parliamentary Sectoral Committee on Formulations and to have the civil society and other heads within the government and within other partners and parties come together, sit down, and figure out how it is best to deal with this matter with Venezuela and the U.S. in the Caribbean Sea with ships and boats and guns and planes ready to cause a World War III in this region. We're not hearing much from CARICOM. We're not hearing much from the OAS. We're in the middle of this whole thing, and you have the government silent on the matter. I mean, this is dangerous for both you and I and the rest of the country, because just recently, Kamala Persad-Bissessar said that she's going to kick out all those illegal immigrants in our country. Right? Just yesterday, right? The Guardian paper, as a matter of fact, this morning, the United Guardian said that the Ministry of Homeland Security reported a massive drop in work permits for Venezuelans from 4,275 last year to just 757. And the PM also signaled that she wanted them gone. Trinidad even rushed, just yesterday, Trinidad were rushing in the supermarket after rumors of the U.S. strike on Venezuela. But both governments confirmed that the reports were false, that the Supermarkets Association assured that there is no need for panic because they hear that America's going to strike Venezuela anytime now. And so they rush to supermarket to buy up goods and all that kind of thing. So, and we here in Guyana, we hear like if nothing happening in the Caribbean Sea there and across the borders. Big things are going to happen there very soon. And the government is not saying anything. Your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you. And let me preface what I'm saying with the sense that an historical perusal of the PPP's attitude to nationalism and regionalism shows that the PPP has very little nationalist bone in them and less regional bone in them. If you go back to the Federation of 1958-62,
yes,
when 10 Caribbean countries came together to form a Caribbean Federation, a West Indies Federation, which in effect made the West Indies one country. The PPP did not take Guyana into the Federation. They argued that their supporters, who were a majority at that time in Guyana, would become a minority in a Caribbean white state. So they were very parochial in an ethnic sense in determining their attitude to CARICOM. During the 28 years they were out of government, they treated CARICOM as what they say a black boys club, because the quote-unquote black leaders in the rest of the Caribbean did not condemn the PNC and Mr. Burnham for rigging elections. And so that was their attitude. When they came back to power, they were lukewarm again to regionalism. In fact, they flirted with formation of a sub-regional organization of Trinidad headed by Basdio Pandey, the PPP headed by an Indian here, and an Indian leader was leading Suriname. They flirted with that. And so they've never had a very strong regional bone. Let's come now to the national. This is the same attitude they have to the nation. Ravidev, for example, who's the ideologue for the PPP these days, argued, he urged Indian people, we have him on tape, telling them, people in India, come to Guyana and make money. Come to Guyana and make money. Money is here to be made. And when you come to Guyana, you will see India, because your people in Guyana, they control the economy, and so on and so forth, right? At another time, Ravi said that when Indians leave and they captured lands or they go to other lands, what they take with them is this thirst for making money. Now, I would be presumptuous to say that Indian people in general see Guyana as a place to just make money. I don't believe that. What I do believe is that at the ideological level, the PPP Indian leaders feel that Guyana is a place to make money. They may not take the money back to India because they're here in Guyana, but they will they feel that the ideology is to make money and then use that money to dominate Guyana, which Ravidev argues was the original intent when Indian people leave their country. So I think the PPP government is more preoccupied with the accumulation of wealth here in Guyana than to defending Guyana's sovereignty. You know, that is why, Jabdio jumped on the rooftop when, it was suggested that he suggested giving Venezuelans a sea route.
A pathway.
A pathway to the sea. And it is clear. I have heard from people who were in councils when this thing was put on the table and that he supported it. I think those people will give away part of Guyana in order to get all of Guyana. Let me repeat that. I think the PPP will give away part of Guyana's territory in order to get all of Guyana's wealth that is left. And I think it is that ideological position that guides them, that they don't have a robust attitude to defending the national interest. Now, 1982, I remember well. The PNC under Burnham was there. The Venezuelans made their move as they had done before. And a small country, no oil wealth, was able to mount a national cultural response to the Venezuelans. We didn't have guns and gunships to tackle Venezuela. But what the PPP, the PNC government of the time did was to mobilize a national cultural reaction.
Yes.
And you ask anybody who study these matters, they will tell you in warfare, a national cultural reaction is very important. So that when your soldiers go there with gun in hand, they're going out there representing the nation and representing that reaction, that national cultural reaction. And the PNC was able to mobilize it. And at that time, I was an opponent of the PNC. But you have to say that the PNC was able to mobilize that national cultural reaction because the PNC, at the ideological level, represented that national cultural reaction. That is, the PNC was more nationalist, and I think is still more nationalist than the PPP. I am not saying that the PPP and East Indian people don't love Guyana. I'm sure they love Guyana. You wake up, I don't think Jack Joe wakes up in the morning or Irfan Ali and say we don't love Guyana and, we don't care to defend. I don't think it's simplistic as that. I think they mean well, but they are hamstrung by an ideological view that doesn't see defense of the nation. They cry about the army being predominantly black, but they have never made a concerted effort to socialize Indian Guyanese to join the army. When they came back to power, Jagan made a weak attempt to get Indians to join the army, and the Indians frankly and promptly tell him, thanks, but no thanks. We're not interested. Army salary can't feed me. We gotta make money. You see? And now people like myself who felt that it was an area of control of the state that Africans should hold on to. I have shifted my view. The WPA, members of the WPA have shifted. Some of us have shifted our view. And we are saying, let Indian Guyanese and Amerindian Guyanese be represented in the army in relation to their numerical strength. That the army must become national at an ethnic sense, so that all of us have the instinct, all of us have this drive to go and defend our country. Some of us can't be making money, and others who should be making money are out there defending the nation. That's unfair. That's unfair. Let some of us make money and some of us go and defend the nation. So my long answer to your question is that I am not convinced that the PPP at their ideological core has a national cultural fidelity to Guyana, not just as a state. They have a fidelity to Guyana as a state, a nation state, but not to Guyana as a civilization. And when I talk about civilization, I mean neighbor string barrier, right? I mean neighbor string barrier. That is what you call a civilization. Right. All right? And I don't think the PPP has a fidelity to Guyana as a civilization. They may have a fidelity, I'm sure they have a fidelity to Guyana as a nation state, as a place to make money, but not as a civilization in Minable String Barrier.
That's right. Dr. David Hinds, the co-leader for the WPA and an elected member, a matter of fact, MP-elect tomorrow, will be a member of parliament. Officially, he's here with us. Dr. Hinds, I got like about 2 more questions, then we can wrap this thing up. Let us jump to this whole thing about the Chancellor's retirement. Outgoing leader of the opposition, Robin Norton, has declined the president's proposal to confirm the Chancellor. He said, what happened to Justice Cummins is a dangerous precedent, and it's unfortunate that this society doesn't speak out on the issues like that. So what happened next? Desmond Trotman and Vincent Alexander speak out on this issue in a Starbuck News editor letter to the editor, and they said, quote, the reality is that democracy is spouted while the citizens are selectively held to the norms that flow from the articulation of democracy. The rules, the democratic centralists trample upon democracy in pursuit of absolute control. My question to you: what do you say? Is that the main? Is that the Madam Chancellor was forced out, or she needs to tell the public what really happened that made her retire?
The short answer is that Madam Chancellor was forced out. Second, Madam Chancellor would not tell the public that she was forced out. It's not ethical to do that. But our silence on the matter would give us an inkling, and it has given us an inkling as to what happened. Look, it's very clear. Let me say very upfront. Brother Aubrey called me as they go between the WPA and the PNC, and he raised the matter with me. I don't think he asked me what he should do, but he asked my view. And I was very clear to tell him, do not dirty your hands by giving your assent to the two nominees that are put forward by the president. Do not dirty your hands. I can't tell you what to do. You are the opposition leader. You are a leader of the PNC. You were kind enough to ask my view. I guess they call it in politics consultation. And I am glad that you did, because people beat you up. People beat up Norton and said he doesn't consult, right? And I don't want to get into PNC story. What I am saying, as far as these matters are concerned, even when the WPA was not in Parliament, Brother Aubrey would consult me on these national matters. He would raise them with me, and I was always careful to say, I am not telling you what to do. I am just telling you what the WPA's position is and what my position is, right? And I hope I don't ruffle feathers with people in the PNC who says that he doesn't consult. Maybe that happens in the PNC, but I am telling you. And so on this matter, he called me and he told me what the issues are, and I told him promptly, do not sign that. I am not telling you what to do. But if I were in your position, I ain't signing nothing. And I gave that view because I felt the ice pass Justice Cummins, the ice pass Justice Roxanne George, and the ice pass Aubrey Norton. And you know, those two ladies are females. You can come to the conclusion that the ice pass women, professional women. Those two ladies and Aubrey, they're African Guyanese. And you can come to the conclusion that there is past African Guyanese. As you said, there is past black people. No. Aubrey wrote to that man 3 years ago and said, listen, I am prepared to regularize both Cummins and Wilshire. They didn't do it. They wait until Cummins go on leave. And then when she come back, they carried out a coup. Cummins went back to her substantive position. Wilshire went back ostensibly to her substantive position, but she had no office. Their nominee, Navindra Singh, refused to vacate the temporary acting position, and thus created a crisis. And I think Justice Cummins took, the easy way out after 8 years of stress, after 8 years of taking your eyes past that lady, refusing to regularize her. I think, it's so much a human being can take. And I think she just said, well, I have had enough. And that is what they wanted. Immediately as she says, I've had enough, they're ready now to regularize two people. Now, what they're doing there is manipulating Roxanne George. They're saying, Roxanne, we ain't going to regularize you because we don't want to regularize your sissy. So we ain't going to regularize you. Now we get rid of your sissy. We're now ready to regularize you. That's manipulation. And I resent it as a black man. I resent the manipulation of black people. Now, Roxanne George and Yonette Cummins, let me use a term from the village. They're not ground dove. They're not like me. I'm just a ground dove. Them people that eagle. High, they will fly high. And if you can treat black eagles in that way, are we surprised that you constantly on a daily basis treat black ground doves in the way you treat us? And so they shove that lady out. They're manipulating Roxanne George, and they are trying to take the eyes and pass Aubrey for Aubrey to know rubber stamp their nonsense. I am not for that, and I made it very clear that I'm not for that. Now, let me say this. Black people in Guyana have to stop being simplistic about their position. I think every black person in Guyana, including them in the PPP, know that they take the eyes and pass black people, that they don't have black people as part of their developmental plan for this country, as far as accumulation of wealth. Every black person, including PPP black people, know that. But I think what we do is that we have taken this attitude, well, since they're treating the race like that, I'm going to look after myself. And when you look after yourself, what you are doing is that you're helping to validate the oppression of your group, including you. So you're looking after yourself. That is a natural human instinct, to look after the individual self. But in the process of looking after your individual self, you are oppressing yourself even further. And I just want to sound that warning to African Guyanese, that yes, I understand that you all understand what is happening in this country to African Guyanese. But this recent attitude of looking after myself, since if you can't be them, you got to join them, you're really joining in the further oppression of your group, which is going to have long-term consequences in this country. This country, Guyana, is now a country of untold wealth. And whether we like it or not, mankind is an economic being. So said Karl Marx, it's an economic being. We wake up in the morning, we bathe, we scrub between, we put on the lipstick, whatever we put on with nice clothes, and we go there to sell our labor power for money. Whether you're a civil servant, your army, you're selling your labor power in order to get the returns so that you can build up your wealth and your resources. All right? And so in that sense, we are an economic being. But if you're an economic being who does not control the economy and the economic levers of the country, crap or smoke your pipe.
Well, you made that. Well, I want to jump in there and give you back up that same statement pertaining to the state of the country. You said Ghana is full of wealth now. We had Mr. R. Rose, who said, according to the World Bank, the poverty rate in Guyana is in 2019 stood at 49%. However, with the zero excise tax on gasoline, the removal of VAT on water and electricity, cash grants, increase in pension, wages, and other poverty reduction programs, some sources have indicated that the current poverty rate may be significantly lower than the 2019 rate of 49%, or possibly reduced by more than half. But the exact current figure is unconfirmed. The lowest of inflation, decrease in poverty, increase in pension and wages, cash transfer of $100,000 to every citizen over the age of 18 years, the creation of more than 50,000 jobs, expansion of the infrastructure, and the granting of thousands of house lots are evident that the country is moving in the right directions. But that is what he said. But the bottom man in the bottom of the ladder is not feeling that. He's not getting that kind of sensation. He's not getting that kind of feeling that even though the country is rich, the grocery in the market is still going up. The food stuff in the supermarket going up. Everything going up. And people always have this belief that every time they be in government, everything goes up. Everything gets expensive. You think this analysis by Dr. Rose is correct, or it needs some more clarification?
It needs some more clarification. Prior to the 2019 figure of 46 to 49%, the poverty rate was 60% the decade before. And I think in the decade up to 2019, it went from 60% down. It may be less than a decade, but it went from 60% down to 49 to 46%, which means that it was coming down, right? And I have no doubt that from 2019 to 2025, it has come down. The question here is not whether it is coming down. It is at what rate it is coming down. You see, what rate it is coming down. Given the kind of resources we have, given the macro growth in the economy, poverty rate should be coming down faster. We should see at the least, I think I was reading something by an economist coming out of the University of Chicago, and he was saying that given what the kind of resources we have, the rate from 2019 to 2025, that poverty rate should have been half, so that we should have a poverty rate around 15 to 20% now. And they're saying, well, it's about 39%, which means the rate of reduction of poverty is slow for a very fast-growing economy. I am not denying that the poverty rate has to come down. And it's not coming down because of the government. Now, this is where your thing about the prices come in, right? The poverty rate is coming down slowly, not because of government intervention, but because of the natural development of the economy. We are at the front door now, right? We have front door wealth, oil. And so the infusion of petroleum and the price of petroleum naturally, because some of that money will trickle down in social services, it will trickle down in small increases in income, etc. Excuse me, etc. So you are going to have, whether the government puts its hand in the economy or not, you are going to have a slow reduction. Now, what I am arguing this morning, if the government is interested in really reducing poverty, it will then, through policies, intervene and quicken the rate of reduction of poverty. So poverty is coming down by itself, by just the infusion of petroleum wealth in the economy. But if the government were to intervene deliberately, that rate would be faster. And so therefore, this government must take no credit for whatever small reduction there is in the poverty rate. All right? They must take nothing. The poverty rate is coming down in spite of them. And that if they, for example, were to give structured cash grants, where people get cash grants as a matter of law, and they get enough cash grants to take the cash grant and turn it into wealth. Because if you're able to turn money into wealth, then that helps to quicken your exit from poverty, because you're not going to be able to invest in a home. You're now going to invest in a small business, which is going to bring extra income. And that extra income is not temporary. $100,000 cash grant, you go and you spend it. You pay debt. You buy food that you didn't have. You pay your rates and taxes. That doesn't shift your poverty state. But if you were to get $500,000 or $1 million Guyanese dollars, and you are able now to take that money and invest it in ways in which you are now creating wealth at the level of the household, then you will see the parachuting downward of the poverty rate. So this government has done nothing deliberately. There's done nothing deliberately to reduce poverty in this country. Insofar as you take the small increase in old age pension, the little $100,000 one-time cash grant, a little school book voucher here and there, when you take all of them together, they're going to make a minimal dent. And you can't call it a dent, minimal touch-up on the poverty rate. I mean, you have to take all, and I think that is what this person you are referencing there is talking about, is that all these things that the government, you put them all together, it is going to impact the poverty rate in a small way, but that is incidental. It is not deliberate.
Incidental, but not deliberate. My final two questions to you now, sir. This whole issue of the the Access to Information Act 2011. Now, in today's culture news, let us to the edit section. A number of persons from civil society, including Mr. Radzik, Elizabeth Dina Hughes, and other members of civil society made a request on October 22nd, 2025 to Justice Charles R. Ramson, who are Commissioner of Information for who's at 10 East Street, Georgetown, was made under Section 12(1), Section 16 of the Access to Information Act. They requested 10 documents, including gas to shore, including access to the oil and gas with the EPA and all these different things. Nothing from the man. Quiet. No release. Nothing. As a new MP, are you going to be pushing to have this department, this Commissioner of Information, Charles Ramson Sr., do his job, or would you guys have to find other means of litigation to ensure that he do his work that the taxpayers paid him to do?
But we will have to look at the legislation that governs Mr. Ramson. And clearly that legislation needs to be tightened to make it a criminal offense for not doing your constitutional duty and to provide the population with information when they request it through the legal channels. And so we have to look at the legislation. I haven't had a chance to look at the legislation yet, but we will have to look at the legislation and to find ways and means of strengthening the legislation. You know, there are laws, constitutional laws that are expressed. That is, whatever the law said, the law is expressed clearly. The minister, the Commissioner of Information is bound by law to provide information to citizens who request those things, and say it explicitly. So there's express law, but then there is inherent law or inferred law. That is, the Constitution may intend that he must honor his constitutional duty and give information when people request it. And the framers may have felt that there was no need to say that explicitly, but to infer it. And so there is inferred law or inherent law. But you find that in a place like Guyana, inferred law don't move those people a tyrant. They don't move tyrant. So you have to move to express very clearly in the law that this is what is required of the of the Commission of Information, and that is failure to comply with the constitutional requirements could lead to prosecution. And so we have to look at our constitution again, and try to tighten it, try to make things like that very explicit. So we need more express clauses in the Constitution. If you look at the American Constitution, which I'm relatively familiar with, there are express powers. Express powers clearly expressed in the Constitution. The government shall not make any religion. Very clear, expressed. The government shall make no religion, which means there can be no national religion. All right? That is expressed clearly in the Bill of Rights. And so we need to have more express powers in our Constitution to fight against tyrants who take advantage of the silence of the Constitution on some matters, or the intention of the framers to infer that this is so without actually saying that. You know, Article 13 in the Constitution talk about inclusive governance. But we need to tighten, because what Article 13 does is talk about inclusive governance, but it doesn't give the power of government to enforce it.
Right.
If you look at the Bill of Rights in America, the first 9 amendments, it says the government shall make no religion, the government shall this, the government shall respect the right to free speech. And then the 10th Amendment gives the government to make any law necessary to carry out those 9 amendments. So it gives the government power. What is called, that clause is called the elastic clause, because government has used that clause to do a lot of other things. But the point here is that the government lays out some powers, and then it gives the government the power to make any law to carry out its function. You see? And so we have to be clear about what these men and women do with power in this country. And we have to be explicit in our statutes and in our Constitution.
And then now my final question to you, sir. The World Justice Report of 2025 came out. Yesterday, the government dismissed the World Justice Report, Rule of Law Index, which placed Guyana at the 80th position globally, raising doubts about the reliability of the outdated information and the condition under which the data was collected. I mean, the government feel that these international bodies just playing tricks, or they just to do nothing, to play tricks. These are people who are professionals who do their job straight down the line. What are your thoughts on this World Justice Report? You think Guyana, and the president talk about he's going to root out corruption and he's going to root out this and he's going to root out that, and bam, World Justice Report put out that on you, and they can't take it. So what are your thoughts on it right now?
You know, Andrew, I love Gail Teixeira, Comrade Gail as I call her. I've known Comrade Gail for 36 years.
You can meet her in Parliament.
Yeah, she was quite instrumental in my younger days in opening up my eyes to literature. And I remember South African literature, some wonderful literature coming out of apartheid South Africa at that time, and she was quite instrumental. And so I know that Comrade Gail is a very intelligent person. And if the PPP is saying this rating is based on outdated data, let's follow their logic and agree with their logic. If these people were to take, as they're saying, recent data, current data, Guyana would be 150. If they're saying that people take data from 6 years ago, and I think the people data is updated. But if they're saying it's old data, be careful what you ask for. Because people take real commentator, crapo, smoke 42 your pipe, because you would be rated much, much lower than you are. You don't have to get binoculars. I don't know if that is a thing that's still in course, because the technology gone up now. And you remember in old days, as smart boy, we used to get binoculars.
Binoculars, yes.
You want to see
Yes.
far.
Yes, yes.
You don't have to have binoculars to know that human rights violation is a daily occurrence in Guyana, and it affects the rule of law. And I am surprised we are not rated lower than 80. I am really surprised.
Doc, thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to jump in and say before we close that we have missed this morning?
No, I mean, you've grilled me quite a lot, where we've gone an hour and a half and so on.
Doc, thank you.
Just to say thanks, Andrew, for allowing me the opportunity to come on. I know we should have pre-taped this, and yesterday I got busy and so on, but I'm committed to doing these shows. Sometimes the time doesn't allow me to really do it as often as I can, but I'm committed to come in on these programs and to engage in the type of conversation. And I thank you for the questions you posed to me today, because they allowed me to speak to a lot of pertinent and related issues that sometimes I don't get to speak to when I am doing monologues on my program,
Yes.
right? When you're questioned by somebody, and somebody who knows the issues, then you tend to articulate a little bit more. As Teacher George Young used to say, when you talk by yourself, you're there first gear. And me got UG. He said, when they start to ask me about folklore, and me start for talk, I saw me move a gear thing to second gear. Me not the third gear yet. And then I clap. Me don't know what they would have done if me go on in third gear. It allows you to get into second gear.
Yes.
And I think you afforded me that opportunity to co-teacher George to get into, I think, second gear. Me not meet the third gear yet.
Let me third gear yet. What we're gonna do? When Parliament opens tomorrow, so let me see what's going to happen when you get to Parliament.
Right.
We can go third and fourth gear. But thank you very much for clearing this up, and thank you for unpacking those issues for the learning, and did a great job. Thank you very much, Dr. Hinds. We're going to see you in Parliament tomorrow. Thank you. That's our show for this morning. We want to thank all of you for viewing. All of you who came all the way from across the country and across the world to listen to the countdown this morning. We're going to see you right back here again next Sunday for another edition of the countdown. Have a great rest of your afternoon and be safe out there. It's going to get hectic. We're coming on to Christmas season, and we know that when we come down to that season, things get more hectic. We're going to see you back here next Sunday. Have a great rest of your afternoon now. Goodbye.